morning, everybody. Good morning and welcome to our beautiful spiritual center. I'm Reverend Bonnie Rose, and here we are at our scaffolded and soon-to-be painted Grandma Spiritual Center. Let's stand up and we'll sing together our congregational song. Let us remain with our focus turned inward to that beautiful heart space that this whole service has been pointing towards. And we rest in that heart space, allowing the fellowship of this community to open it even further as we have come together to celebrate Spirit. Let us relax, let go, be here, and listen with wonder to the words of our sacred reading.
From Immortal Diamond by Richard Rohr. Within us there is an inner natural dignity. You often see it in older folks. There is an inherent worthiness that already knows and enjoys. You see it in children. It is an immortal diamond, waiting to be mined. It is a reverence humming within you that must be honored. Call it the soul, the unconscious, deep consciousness, or the indwelling Holy Spirit. Call it nothing. It does not need the right name or the right religion to show itself. It does not even need to be understood. It is usually wordless. It just is, and shows itself best when we are silent, or in love, or both. It is God in all things, yet not circumscribed by any one thing. I will call it the true self. And so it is.
And so it is. And so let us allow those words to draw us into deeper recognition of the true self, the immortal diamond that we carry with us always. And let us recognize this and remember this as we sing together. I am remembering. We remember it for ourselves. We remember it for everyone here. And we remember the truth of good for the whole world. In this beautiful silence, we rest and remember the incredible beauty of existence and our place in it. Let us bring that awareness to our open-eyed state as we breathe in deeply and then exhale, opening our eyes, loving what is as it is, and so it is.
I am whole, I am complete, I am perfect in God's eyes. I am loved, I am forgiven in a light that purifies. I am hope, I know the way, I have everything I need. I am strong and I am guided in thought and word and deed. But sometimes I forget what I know deep down is true. Will you see in me what I see in you? You are whole, you are complete, you are perfect in my eyes. You are loved, you are forgiven in a light that purifies. You are hope, you know the way. You have everything you need. You are strong and you are guided in thought and word and deed. But if sometimes you forget, what you know deep down is true. I will not let go of what I know is so. This is what I see in you. And in you, and in you, yes, it's true.
So here we are. It's Sunday morning. We're still in the cave. The scaffolding is still up. Grandma's facelift is still in progress. That means the building, people, just so you know. Let's do that affirmation that we did when we first came in. I'm going to have you repeat after me. Oh God, please help me to believe the truth about myself. No matter how beautiful it is. Yes. Thank you. Yes and amen. So what if today is the day? What if today is the day that you can wake up, that you can open your heart to look in the mirror and to see yourself in the eyes of others and to look out at the world and see the truth revealed as beautiful as it is? Because I've got news for you. We've been holding back. We don't know how beautiful we are. We don't know how beautiful the world is, but God knows, and we are one with God. So today is the day that we can discover it. Yeah. All right. So I thought I'd start by telling you about a time when I felt hopelessly inadequate. One time. It's a little embarrassing in retrospect, but anyway, you know how it goes. So this was, I've noticed as I was meditating on this talk that I seem to have a proclivity for picking careers and other things that involve a high level of rejection. There is a little bit of rejection in ministry. I hate to break it to you, and I get that rejection is nothing more than my permission to let something else define me. So there's that. There's a little bit of rejection in writing. Those of you who write know about that. But the mother lode, the zenith, the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes of rejection came for me when I was living in New York and trying to get work as a singer and an actress. 90,000 singers and actresses, 2 jobs. You know how that is. And perhaps you have something similar in your life, something where you just feel inadequate, where you feel rejected, where you feel like you're not enough. So that was in New York when I was feeling all of that. And I ended up leaving that business and came here and became a minister. But then something happened. I have a question for you. Has this ever happened to you? You are doing great on your spiritual path, you're reading books, you're seeing a practitioner, you're going to church, you've really got this God thing down pat, and then you go home to your family of origin, and it all floats away like a helium balloon, right? Sounds like that may have occurred in 1 or 2 lives here sitting in this sanctuary. Just once, right? Right. So I had been living in California for 18 years or so, and I was summoned back to New York to do a wedding for my nephew. My nephew was going to marry the man of his dreams, and I was called to do the wedding with my whole family there. Plus, my nephew is in the music business, in the music and theater business in New York, and he's quite successful, and he has a lot of students and colleagues. So not only was I going back to be with my family of origin, I was going back to do a wedding in front of people that I used to feel very competitive and inferior with. So, get this. I feel that I do a pretty kick-butt wedding, you know? A pretty good wedding, not a mean wedding, but a really, a really good wedding. But evidently that only applies to weddings that I do in California. If I am called to do a wedding over here in New York with my family present, with a bunch of singers and actors present, all of that goes out the window. Does that sound familiar to anybody? How your quality or your level of accomplishment or your feelings of adequacy or inadequacy change depending on the circumstances? The reason that it does that, it does it all by itself. The reason that that happens, I believe, is simply because of collective ignorance. Now, because of who we are, because we're always working on ourselves, we're going to hear that word ignorance and make it into a bad thing. We're going to say, oh, Reverend Bonnie said I'm ignorant. It must be true. But ignorance is not ignorance as we think of it. Ignorance is not stupidity. Ignorance is something else. And I'm going to explain what I mean by ignorance. How many of you changed your clocks last weekend? How many of you waited till Wednesday or so? So I changed my clocks last weekend because I needed to be here on Sunday, and I was so touched by when Lonnie Cassidy, our board president, stood up and she made an announcement about something, and she said that she was mad at daylight savings time. She was angry at daylight savings time. And this spring ahead business is the harder one, don't you think? Yeah, it's a little harder than the fallback. But anyway, I'm going about my business, doing my thing that I do every day. And one of the things that I've gotten into recently, which some of you know, is I've become an avid hiker. So I hike in the mountains of Ojai almost every morning. And what I've learned from some of my hiking friends is that you are technically, to avoid certain critters, you're supposed to avoid being on the mountains very early in the morning or very like at dusk. So we try and stay away from sunrise and sunset on the mountains, or there might be a critter that comes after you. Mountain lions are the ones that spring to mind for me. But anyway, so it's Monday, the clocks have been changed, and I'm like, it's 7 o'clock, it's time to hike. Oh, but it's dark. But it's 7 o'clock, it's time to hike. I don't think the mountain lions set their clocks. Do you, Reverend Bonnie? So I waited until 8, where it was lighter. And that's what I'm talking about with ignorance. What I got when I meditated about that idea that the mountain lions hadn't set their clocks is that there is this thing called vast eternity, and we have imposed something that we call time upon vast eternity. That time is a made-up concept. Time is what happens to prevent everything from happening at once, as Albert Einstein said. Time is something that we have constructed to manage eternity, to manage infinity. And what if the same thing is true for the things that we impose upon the level of astonishing presence and beauty and power and love that we are? What if it is so unmanageable, so vast, so beautiful, so gorgeous that we can't see it? So we parcel ourselves out into little pieces, like, well, if I accomplish this, I'll be enough. If I do this, I'll be enough. If my bank account looks good, I'll be enough. If I get this particular job, it'll be enough. If I can do this wedding without making a mess, it'll be enough. You see what I mean? The holiness that we are is so vast that we are just through a collective decision almost designed to limit it by parceling ourselves out. In the class that I just taught, it's called It's All God, the Flowers and the Fertilizer, we talked a lot about the Ark of the Covenant and the holiest of holies. You've all seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, I presume, right? So, you know, I get all those movies mixed up, but in one of them, I believe it is Raiders of the Lost Ark, they go into this sacred space and the Ark of the Covenant opens, and the people who look at the Ark of the Covenant get all their skin dissolved off of them and they turn into skeletons and they die and all of that, right? So what that means is that there is such an astonishing presence, such a holiness, such a beautiful, creamy center to us that if we were to look upon it, we couldn't even perceive it. It's as if the ego falls away when we see it, when we step into that place of knowing our loveliness. And we have been told our whole lives that loveliness, that beauty, that power, that grace, that goodness that we are, we have been told our whole lives that is lacking in us. And sadly, one of the culprits that has told us that the most is religion. Oh, someone said ourselves, good answer. But it's also religion, which is a collective of ourselves. It's one of the reasons I'm teaching this book this month, Immortal Diamond by Richard Rohr. Richard Rohr is a Franciscan mystic. In the book, he writes this passage that I thought was very clever. He said he was talking to a bishop about his mysticism, and the bishop said, "Richard, don't talk to me about mysticism. I have a church to run." Yeah. Anyway, it's a beautiful book, and one of the reasons I'm teaching it is that I am passionate about assisting people in transcending what might have been perhaps a troubled spiritual past. I know that when I've asked the question before of the congregation, who here had a troubled spiritual past? I see a lot of hands go up. You know, I've had people say to me that part when the children go off to youth and family church, when you sing, "You are the face of God, I hold you in my heart," to them. "You are the face of God, I hold you in my heart." People say to me, that's a very different message than I got when I was a child. I was told I was a sinner. I was told I was responsible for the death of Jesus. I was told that I was going to go to hell if I didn't shape up, right? We do it differently here. We say, "You are the face of God." And one of the beautiful things about this book is that Richard Rohr kind of integrates a lot of what we teach, said in a slightly different way, with the healing of Christianity. He talks about the idea of prophets, that a prophet is someone that can stand within the confines of their religion, but stand at the edges and respectfully question the status quo. So there were Old Testament prophets. Jesus was a Jewish prophet. Ernest Holmes, the founder of this religion, was a prophet. And I'll bet that there are many, many prophets sitting out there in these seats willing to question the status quo, which is a beautiful thing because it brings us deeper. Religion was meant to connect us. In this book, though, Richard Rohr says, religion itself must bear most of the responsibility for increasing the distance between God and humanity. Religion must bear most of the responsibility for increasing the distance between God and humanity. Instead of proudly announcing that the problem is already solved and the perceived gap has been overcome from the very beginning, religion is supposed to proudly announce that you are beautiful. Religion is supposed to proudly announce that you are filled with the grace and the goodness of God just as you are. Religion is supposed to overcome the gap. It's supposed to do all of those things. Then he goes on to say, religio, which means rebinding, is not doing its job if it only reminds you of your distance, your unworthiness, your sinfulness, and your inadequacy before God's greatness. Whenever religion actually increases the gap, it becomes anti-religion. So can you take your religious past and just let it go? Say, oh my goodness, that was anti-religion. I'm going to do something else from now on. I am going to close the gap between the grace and the goodness and the grace and the power and the love of God, that this is who I am right here and right now. And lest I sound too arrogant, like, well, you know, they were wrong. This religion is really the best one. This one that we practice here, it's really the best one, right, Mia? Yes, it's the best one. We've got it down pat. But I have observed that we have made some errors in this teaching as well. And I respectfully, hopefully respectfully, stand and question that status quo. You know, there's a lot of talk about our holiness and our perfection. And I think that sometimes what we do is that we impose a human standard, a worldly standard of perfection on the idea of spiritual perfection. In this book, Richard Rohr talks about Jesus and how one of the fundamental problems with Christianity and with understanding the teachings of Jesus is that they made Jesus only divine. And because of that, we had to be only human. Where in truth, Jesus is fully human and fully divine. And guess what? We are too. We are too. We are fully human and fully divine. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, you know, I have noticed that and it's getting so much better in this teaching that we sometimes try and affirm our lives into a pleasing shape. We try and slap life into submission, into something that makes us feel good about ourselves. There was a time in religious science where people were afraid to come to church if they had an illness because they were afraid that they would be questioned. People would say, what was in your consciousness to create that, right? How unkind is that? Let us know together this morning that everything that happens is the fullness of humanity and divinity all rolled into this mystery that we can barely comprehend with our human minds, but that is so real and so present, that is so eternal, that is us. That is us right here and right now. Can we know that together? Ah, yes, we can know it together. But the other thing that I sometimes see us doing in religious science that isn't always as effective as it could be is that we talk about changing our thinking to change our lives. And that's a beautiful thing. Sometimes we do need to change our thinking to change our lives. But what if we can't? What if that thinking is just stuck in this groove like a record going over and over again, just playing over and over again, this thing that we can't, that just keeps coming up for us, this feeling of inadequacy, this feeling of unworthiness, this feeling of I'm not as good as somebody else, this feeling of comparison. What if we're stuck? Well, if you can't change your thinking to change your life, then change your life to change your thinking. Richard Rohr talks about how we don't think ourselves into a new way of living. We live ourselves into a new way of thinking. We live ourselves into a new way of thinking. We act as if. If you want to become like the Buddha, you act as if you are the Buddha. If you want to become the Christ, you act as if you are the Christ, which means loving your enemies, which means loving all of the human conditions that are within you and everybody else. That's actually how I resolved that issue with the wedding that I was talking about. Remember, backtracking, I am fully capable of doing weddings in California, not so much over here in New York with my family and a whole bunch of actors and singers present. Without even knowing that I was planning to live myself into a new way of thinking, I just became fully aware of the idea that I wanted to be of service to my nephew and his future husband. That's really how I wanted to show up, but I didn't know how to get from feeling anxious to wanting to be of service. So I spoke to God. I literally went into a closet and spoke to God. You know, New York apartments are very small, and I was staying with somebody where there wasn't any place to be private, so I went into a closet and said, God, I know you're in here with me. So show me what to do. And the answer that I got was simply to get out and walk, to get out of the apartment and start to walk. This was about 3 days for the wedding. And for 3 days, 3 days before the wedding, for 3 days when I wasn't involved in wedding preparation, I would go outside. We were staying right by Lincoln Center, and I would walk up Broadway. That's a very New York thing to do, by the way, because the streets in New York go like this and Broadway goes like that. So I would walk up Broadway and then over to the park, Central Park, and walk around Central Park, thinking about all those episodes of Law and Order I've seen. And then walk around the East Side and come back and go to Zabar's and have a bagel and walk back to my friend's apartment where we were staying. And somehow, through all of that wandering and pondering, I learned to breathe slowly and move deeply. And when it came time to walk down the aisle in front of my nephew and his future husband, I just did the same thing. I moved deeply and breathed slowly, and the entire ceremony flowed from that place. And just to show you that these things actually do work, again, at the risk of sounding arrogant, my nephew did tell me I could start a whole cottage industry of weddings in New York. He said that people who weren't even dating were coming up to him and saying, "Can she do my wedding, please?" But the best part of that story for me was several months later when Andrew and Mark sent me the pictures of their wedding. And sure, I looked at the pictures of us standing at the altar, and it was sweet, and there was this beautiful light around us. But the sweetest part was looking at the faces of all these scary singers and actors that I once had thought were somehow against me, and seeing the love and the tenderness pouring out of their eyes. And to know that I had the privilege of standing at the center and serving that which was so much greater than me. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about in terms of moving past ignorance. I couldn't see it in my frenzied state of inadequacy, but just something through the act of surrender, through the act of letting go, through the act of saying, Spirit, show me how to be in a new way. It opened up the vista of that greater love and compassion and tenderness, and it was a beautiful experience for all. It deepened me and it sweetened my life, and I plan to use it as much as I possibly can. Allow it to use me. So you may be asking yourself, okay, so how do I apply this to my life? Okay, I'm supposed to walk and slowly, and I'm supposed to breathe slowly, and it's not a one-size-fits-all proposition, folks. It's kind of like, sometimes I've shared with you in the past that when I'm trying to write something and it's stuck, often if I just go in the shower and take a shower, I figure out what I'm trying to say. I get unstuck. It's not the other day I was trying to write something and I got stuck and I didn't have time to take a shower, so I just stood in the bathroom in the shower like this saying, okay, I'm ready. Give me the insight now. Doesn't quite work that way, does it? But what I recommend, so you have something useful to take into your lives, to take into your homes and your families and your workplaces and in all of your encounters, is first of all to notice when it is that you might be feeling inadequate, and to know that it's just part of the human condition, and it's part of the beauty of the human condition. There's nothing wrong with feeling inadequate. Not that I have the power to do this, but I give you permission to feel as inadequate as you want to feel. It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. So just notice it, and then make a choice about it. Remember the mountain lion that didn't set its clock. Remembering that your feelings of inadequacy may just be some impossible standard that you're imposing upon eternity, and you impose it upon eternity because you are too beautiful to look at sometimes. Just take a moment to look at that, and then if that doesn't make any sense to you, because it doesn't make any sense to the ego, just surrender and ask, Spirit, I know the capacity for healing in this situation. I know that the only reason that this feeling of inadequacy is coming up in me is because there's something beautiful and magnificent waiting to be revealed through my human, divine frailty and power and strength, all of it mixed into one. I know that there is something awesome that I am supposed to discover here. So Spirit, help me to reveal that. Reveal that through me. Show me my wholeness. Show me the love and the power and the passion in this perfect moment that has been designed especially for me. Know that for yourself, and then start to know it for the whole world, and your whole life will change. This is the day of awakening. This is the day of knowing your beauty. This is the day of knowing your power. This is the day of knowing that you are one with God and that you are an immortal diamond. And so in the spirit of that, I'm going to have you do one quick exercise with one another. This is how it works in terms of changing the whole world. Find someone to look at. You don't have to stare too meaningfully into their eyes. And say to that person, oh, I forgot. No, I'm kidding. Oh, I know what it is. Okay. Say to that person, I love myself so much so I can love you so much so you can love you so much so you can start loving me. Excellent. You got it. You're good to go. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, let us pray. Woo! Let us move into that grace that has never left us, that power, that presence, that abiding love that is so spectacular, that is the holiest of holiness, that is the life of God that lives and moves and has its perfect being through all of us, through all of our flawed abundance, through all of our weirdness, through all of our wonder, through everything. It is all God, it is all good, it is all the fullness of the human divine experience giving birth to itself, inspiring itself through each of us. And so right here and right now, I connect to that realization that there is this perfect life that is God's life, that is my life right here and right now. And though I speak in the first person, I embrace the entire sphere of humanity and the animal kingdom and the entire world in this I am presence, using I am as the sacred name of God. And so together we know I am beautiful, I am powerful, I am magnificent, I am complete, I am perfect, I am perfect in my imperfection. I am this fullness of human and divine consciousness mingled as one, evolving and expressing so beautifully here on the planet Earth. And so I celebrate every single aspect of my life. I allow it to be my gift, my teacher, my essence, my purity, my peace. And with a deep sense of celebration, I give thanks. I give thanks for the spiritual healing and revealing that I know has taken place here this morning, for this greater perception of wholeness that has occurred in each of our hearts, and for this greater self-love and love of other that blesses God and creation and everything beyond our imagination. And so I bless this spiritual center and every single person in it. I bless the people that are not here with us today and all the people that we hold in our hearts. I bless this beautiful teaching as I bless all paths to God, churches, temples, mosques, and ashrams. I bless the fundamentalists and atheists as well, trusting and knowing that everyone is a blessing. And with a heart so filled with blessedness and gratitude, I say, thank you, Spirit, thank you, God. And I release these words into the mystery, and together we say, and so it is.
This place is amazing. You all are wonderful. You're wonderful. I've been touched deeply today. Thank you. You say you just can't find me. You've been searching high and low, from one place to another, for the truth you want to know. You walk away half empty. Something doesn't quite ring true. You look for other answers, a different point of view. You say you just can't hear me, though I'm talking all the time. Just listen and you'll know me, in a book or in a rhyme. In the questions you can't answer, and in more than you can see. I'm right here with you always. You just don't know it's me. I am the wind, I am the rain, I am the love in all your pain. I am the earth, I am the air, I am the hope in your despair. I am everything, everywhere. You say you just can't feel me. There's an emptiness inside. You just can't tell what's missing. Yet I know how hard you've tried. In the thrill of every lover, in the joy of every friend, it's through their touch I'm giving the love that's without end. I am the wind, I am the rain, I am the love in all your pain. I am the earth, I am the air, I am the hope in your despair. I am everything, everywhere. You only have to realize your yearnings are my own. I'm that still small voice inside of you, the one you've always known. I am the wind, I am the rain, I am the love in all your pain. I am the earth, I am the air, I am your thought, I am your prayer. I am everything, everywhere.